Yo, what's good YouTube? It's boardzy, and this is going to be a review of the Razer Deathadder V3 Hyperspeed. I posted initial impressions of this mouse around a week ago, and yeah, this is going to be a full review because yeah, it's just a mini Deathadder. As I said, nothing in the naming or on the box would imply that, but you get it in hand, and it is much smaller than the standard Deathadder V3 Pro. And yeah, here you can see it next to the Ponage Stormbreaker and the Zowie EC3, and these are two mice that it's just truly in the size range of. So is it the most innovative shape, like the first time we've ever seen it? Absolutely not, but it's been highly requested from Razer, and yeah, it does have some unique aspects, like just how flat the sides are on this like new modern Deathadder V3 shape. You get that in the mini size, so I think this is going to be a good option for a lot of people. But for me personally, this is a shape that's just a bit too small, and when I compare it with the Deathadder V3 Pro, I just got this new Fortnite version, and it just feels very stable. It is obviously so much wider, much bulkier in hand, but that's just ultimately what I prefer in an Ergo. I've never really loved any of these mini EC shapes. I did have an EC3 phase for a while, but that is a wider, a bit more like compact, prominent mouse. The only popular Ergo I have on hand that actually feels noticeably smaller is the Pulsar X-Lite V3 in the smallest size. I know Pulsar is making like a 1.5 size made of magnesium, so this EC clone market, it is very saturated. But coming in at $100, I feel like the Deathadder V3 Mini, Hyperspeed, whatever it's called, it's just a good, reliable, like popular option, but you just got to know what you're getting into. Like if you have huge hands, it's probably going to be too small for you, but that is why the standard shape exists. But yeah, moving past the shape for now, the build quality does feel very good. It feels pretty much like the build quality on the new Deathadder Smooth Touch. I mean, it's just solid sidewalls. There doesn't seem like there's going to be the creaking issue. But yeah, there's just no creaking or rattling anywhere on the shell, so it really gets a pass from me in terms of build quality. Obviously, I haven't put like months of long-term use on it, but just judging by Razer's like recent build quality at the V3 Pro, the Smooth Touch Deathadder, I think they have gotten their shell issues together, and this is similar to the V3 Pro, where they are using the post-consumer recycled materials to actually construct the mice. And yeah, like I said, everything seems a-okay on my copy. The only thing that is like even mildly concerning is not even side-to-side wobble on the clicks, because you can see it's very minimal, but when I do this action, I can just hear some slight popping like on the plastic. And none of my other like recent Razer mice have this issue, so it could just be a copy thing, could be a design thing, but just clicking straight down, I don't have an issue. And when I press in and wobble side to side, I mean, there's just like no wobble whatsoever. So I don't want it to seem like that is a big issue, but that's really my only quality nitpick even. And yeah, I guess that is a good segue to the clicks. They're using the optical or Gen 3 optical switches, the same they've been using in the past few mice. And it obviously does like vary in sound and feel slightly on the implementation, but it's just very similar to the Deathadder V3 Pro. And yeah, I'll do a sound test in a second, but these, as you can tell, are fast rebounding switches. Not a lot of room for post travel, like some is there, but it gives the clicks a bouncier feeling. And yeah, just with the tensioning, I really don't have any issues. Even if you do click farther down, it is a little bit heavier, but nothing, no massive discrepancy. And yeah, I'll do a quick sound test of all the buttons. So all in all, quality-wise, in my opinion, this really does not feel like a downgrade in any way from the more expensive, like, standard Deathadder V3 Pro. So I feel like where the compromise comes in for the price is with the sensor. Nobody really knows what it is, but the specs are rated lower than even the $33.99 that was in the Viper Ultimate. So it's assumed that's just like a budget $33.95 equivalent level sensor. One thing worth noting is that there is no motion sync compared to Razer's other implementations where motion sync is like forced on. So I honestly can't say it was a lacking implementation in any way. At first, I assumed it was using the same sensor as the Viper Ultimate. I just don't notice a night and day performance difference. I absolutely notice some difference, but I'm willing to bet that's multiple factors, like not having motion sync, just being 2 generations behind Razer's newest sensor. They do advertise 99.6% tracking accuracy with the Hyperspeed, where they advertise, I think, 99.9 with the Viper V3 Pro. So it's not going to be any crazy difference. I honestly, when I was comparing the Hyperspeed to other like mini EC mice, their 4K implementations, I was not noticing any type of major performance difference in game. So yeah, it's just worth noting. But yeah, in all honesty, in real world use cases, I don't think there are going to be many sensor differences that you're going to notice. Maybe if you're one of the 5 people in the world who used Razer's asynchronous LOD setting. That's no longer a thing. You gotta pick between 1 and 2 millimeters. And also, it is worth noting that I'm only talking about my experience with the Razer Hyper polling dongle. This mouse does ship with only 1 kHz polling, but if you have a dongle from like the Viper V2 Deathadder V3 Pro, that will work. But if you have one from the Viper V3 Pro, that's locked to the mouse because Razer is greedy, you won't be able to use that. But yeah, as always, know your situation, your preferences, your skill level. I presume a lot of people have a dongle by now, but if not, $30 for one, that's like a third of the price of the mouse. It just feels steep. But if you're somebody who just cares about better battery life, you don't want the improved mouse input, better performance, then honestly sticking with the 1K dongle will probably be fine. They did introduce a few new features. Like, this whole release is just random. They finally decided to make a mini Deathadder. They added in raw Excel to the Razer Synapse software pretty much, so you can have, they call it dynamic sensitivity. You can make your own profile. They have a few pre-made ones. I did not commit to this. Like, I didn't use it for multiple days. I tried it for a day and I was just like, put me back on regular mouse input. It's a gimmick. I don't really care for it. I tried raw Excel in the past. The mouse rotation feature is kind of interesting. Maybe if I were to main this mouse, I would put it on like -3 degrees because that kind of lines up with how I grip it. But yeah, I don't know. That feature is a bit more interesting to me than the dynamic sensitivity. And I have heard a few rumors that that feature will come to the Viper V3 Pro, but not the rest of Razer's wireless lineup. So it is interesting. Stuff like that, I think, is good to have in mouse software, and for people who tilt grip, it could actually make a noticeable difference, even though it will likely feel a little bit weird at first. Another thing to talk about, totally different topic, is the weight of this mouse, which does come in at 55 grams. So it is not absolutely the lightest mini EC clone. The Stormbreaker and the X-Lite V3 Mini are lighter, but it's just a very well-balanced, just standard feeling weight. And yeah, it does weigh in on my scale actually at 53 grams, so it is a 1 gram difference from the Ponage Stormbreaker. You consider the fact that this is a magnesium mouse with a ton of holes, and yeah, I don't know, the weight on the Deathadder V3 Hyperspeed, it's just impressive. There are no compromises with the build quality or the weight balancing, so it just feels very nice in hand, but it just does not feel as proportionately light, I guess, as the Deathadder V3 Pro does, because this is just such a large, bulky mouse. There aren't many mice this size that feel as light as it does. But yeah, really, I mean, both of the mice feel fine. These are tried and true weights. I mean, I'm sure there are some people this is going to be too light for, but in that case, just fucking stick with a Zowie EC3. Many people are accustomed to these mid 50 gram weights by now, and yeah, this mouse, it just feels good. It does feel not heavier, but it does feel a bit slower in motion with these stock skates. I've noticed they did go back to the large Zowie style glide design as opposed to whatever they have going on the smiley face with the Deathadder V3 Pro. And yeah, on something like the Heian, these do play pretty controlled. If I were to main this mouse, I probably would swap it for aftermarket skates when they come out, but I never feel like I am hard limited, like I'm just unable to use a mouse because the stock skates aren't what I'd like. But yeah, per usual with Razer, there are no extra skates in the box, and they don't even provide any grips this time around. They're struggling to keep the mouse under $100 with all of those extras. But yeah, the coating is the standard smooth touch coating that they've had for a little while now. It's been on a few releases, and it's quite good. It's not as grippy or rubbery feeling as the white Viper V3 Pro, which is like one of the best coatings I've tried on a mouse, bar none. But yeah, this gets the job done. It doesn't feel like a bad coating in any way. Another minor change they did is they added spacing between the side buttons. This is the real trend this year. And yeah, they do feel nice. They're pretty much perfect for Fortnite. I have no complaints. I had no complaints with the Deathadder V3 Pro, so they just took what worked and they made it a little bit different. This reminds me of like Pulsar's side button design, but it's just very good. The buttons are light, clicky. There's no quality issues, wobbling, like pressing into the shell. Definitely tier 1 Fortnite side buttons. And yeah, I mean, I don't even know what else there is to cover about this mouse. I guess just like more shape and comparison stuff. Compared to the Stormbreaker, which is probably like one of the best comparisons for this mouse. It's just, like I said, flatter on the sides. There's just very aggressive curvature on the Stormbreaker. It has the worst coating on any mouse I have ever tried. Like, I'm trying to have my hand like stick to the coating and it's just fully sliding. Like, it's literally wet. It is such an awful coating. Like, you can see the difference. There's actually like something limiting me from just sliding my fingers on the mouse. And yeah, this is $70 cheaper than the Stormbreaker, so it's a pretty fucking simple decision in my opinion. You can get the wet metal mouse, which honestly is better than the previous batches in terms of the clicks and side buttons and design. But yeah, it's just if you want a good value on a mini EC style shape, I would say Deathadder V3 Hyperspeed all the way. The Pulsar mice are at $70, but I just feel like the Razer Deathadder V3 Hyperspeed is just a higher quality offering. Like, people call me a Pulsar shill, people call me a Razer shill, so I mean, I guess Razer's winning, but I've just never really loved the X-Lights in any size, whereas the Deathadder V3 Pro was one of my favorite shapes, and this, I'm really not going to use it long term. The biggest issue is that there's just not enough, like, girth or height. It's like when the mouse sits in my pinky and ring finger, it just doesn't feel like there's adequate like space in the back of the mouse. If it was just a little bit wider, like more bulky and flared out a bit more, like the EC3, I think I'd be able to manage it like for claw grip long term, but I mean, I don't really care. I've accepted that these mini ergos are not for me, but obviously a lot of people want them. If you have small hands, feminine hands, Asian hands, whatever you want to call it, I think that this is a top ergo option under $100. And yeah, that's about all I gotta say for this video. Yes, this mouse is going to get the seal of approval. I think this is pretty much what most people wanted out of a Deathadder V3 Mini, except for the fact that it is using a more budget sensor offering. I presume some people obviously would want the newest tech found in the Viper V3, but I guess if this is popular enough, that's something they will potentially release down the line. But yeah, as I said earlier in the video, if you want a mini Deathadder V3, this is just the mouse to get, in my opinion. There are plenty of other mini ergos, but yeah, this is just, it's well-rounded, easy to recommend. And yeah, if you guys have any other questions, let me know in the comments below, but that is going to be all. Peace out.